additional rehabilitation work. You'll notice here, there's some concrete work that was done in one of the abutments. And we have some plans to do additional work to kind of shore this bridge up a little bit and keep it open. So we had intended to release that contract this year. We went out to market with it. We only received one price, and we didn't feel like it was a reasonable price. So we decided not to go ahead with the work this year. We plan on tendering it again next year. So the reason why I bring this up, and I want to highlight this, is I just want to stress that, 16WG, if ultimately the preferred option is to remove and replace the bridge, we do have another good example of a concrete spandrel arch bridge in the township in Bridge 12N, and that this is a bridge that we plan on keeping at least in the near term. So with that said, that's really all I had for the committee today, and I'm happy to answer any questions or address any comments you might have on the study. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adam. We'll turn it over to the committee. Are there any questions that anyone would like to ask at this point? Yes, Don.
Well, first off, Adam, thank you very much for doing the research of what we were asking for. You guys can hear me okay, right? Yeah, so thanks, Adam, and your team for working on that. That we really appreciate that. And I do like the fact that we have another bridge around, and I do like the idea that that's already up for rehabilitation. I imagine that will come to us at some point.
Yes, thanks, Don. And through the chair, sorry, I don't understand the question. What do you mean?
Oh, I just meant I'm talking about 12N, the other example. And it's suitable for walking and biking, and obviously not for vehicle traffic, but it's up for rehabilitation, is what you're saying. So this is one that may be a good example that could be saved. Is it coming to our committee at some point then? Does anybody know that, or? Yes, okay, yeah.
Mariana?
Thanks, Nico. Maybe I can just help answer that. So that bridge, we don't have bridges in the township that are listed on the register. So we're trying to, we would be speaking with Adam in Infrastructure just about process and how that could move forward if the committee would like to be informed of those. Because they're not designated, it wouldn't necessarily come to the committee unless it's going through a municipal environmental assessment process. And maybe Adam can comment on that. Would any EA be required for rehabilitation there? So, in that case, it might come to the committee, but otherwise there could maybe be some consultation with, or at least the committee be kept updated on what would be happening and what would be proposed for that bridge. And we could also discuss whether that would be a candidate for designation in future.
Yeah, thanks, Mariana. Thank you for the point of clarification there, and thanks for the question, Don. Yeah, so correct. This bridge, the work that we've scoped on this bridge would not require a separate municipal class environmental assessment study. It's what's referred to as a Schedule A or Schedule A plus project, where we can just go ahead and do the work.
Yeah, go ahead, Marianne. Sorry.
No, thanks for clarifying, Adam. So in sort of talking it through, I think because the bridge isn't protected, it wouldn't necessarily come to the committee, but it would be something that we could have discussions about and determine whether, much like the Irvin Street Bridge, whether that would be a candidate for designation. And given that, especially if it is being rehabilitated, perhaps it might be another one that we could consider protecting over the long term. So we might have to have some discussions about what that might mean financially, and would have to take that kind of information to council. And then ultimately, obviously, it's council's decision, and the Heritage Committee would make a recommendation on that. So we would have to just have some further discussion. And I believe in that respect, the committee wouldn't be involved necessarily in issuing any kind of permit. So it would just be consultation, and perhaps we could bring further information forward as that unfolds.
Yeah, and that I kind of went the wrong way with it. I was going to ask that question second because I really wanted to really talk about 16WG is the one we're really talking about. But I'm glad to hear that we might be part of that process. Is the short answer, I guess, right? We could be. But I did have a question though too. More back to the 16WG, which is a bridge that where our attention is tonight on. I understand that the process and rehabilitation sounds like it's out of it's just engineeringly, it's just not possible. So obviously it sounds as though we're speaking about removal and replacement. And for our committee, I think the sympathetic, I'm not sure how you worded that, Adam. I lost the words on that, but sympathetic design elements, I think is what you used. And I do believe that would be something that we would certainly like to be involved in that part of it. I'm not sure, Nico, where we're at this point. Is there a decision to be made at this point about that? Or is there a possible request to attach to this? Or is this just an information item?
I understood that it's coming forward as an information item unless Devlin or Mariana, you have a different take on that.
Because mine is more very much like we've done with some other bridges where we've had an opportunity to play a role in the design element of the reconstructed bridge. I think I don't know the numbers offhand, but I think everyone in the committee is aware of what we're talking about with the arch bridge. You guys know what I mean? And I do believe that would be something I think our committee would like to be involved in. I'm not sure at what stage. This might be too early, Adam, for that stage. And maybe Mariana, you can inform us about that. And I'm not even sure if we're supposed to be at a decision. It sounds like we're not at a decision stage at this, but I wanted to put that forward for us to consider because especially since it is a rare bridge and we do have another sample of it, at least doing something to remember this bridge would certainly be at least some signage and different things that we've done at other places would be probably appropriate. So I'm not sure where we're at with that yet, though. Obviously that might come. Thank you.
Mariana, and then I would like to offer some questions as well.
Sure, thanks. I think basically whenever an HIA comes before the committee, particularly as in this case for a bridge that's part of an EA process, the committee always has the ability to recommend designation. So that is, it basically comes before the committee. So the committee is aware of what the heritage value is that's been identified and what the recommendations are in the report. So there's a series of options from most preferred to least preferred from a heritage standpoint. So the committee has the opportunity to go to council to recommend designation. And really what the committee is tasked with is to consider heritage value alone. The EA process and the engineering staff, they consider all of the elements of an EA, but the Heritage Committee is only tasked with going to council about heritage. So the way the committee would typically look at it is, has the HIA been prepared according to appropriate standards and methodology? Are there any concerns from that standpoint? So that's the first question here. If there are no concerns with it, then are based on the recommendations made on the value that's been attributed to the bridge, does the committee wish to protect it, attempt to protect it through designation and make a recommendation to council to protect this bridge? And what the committee should look at is the heritage value under 906 and also some of the context here can be considered. So that would be, are there other bridges that are similar? Is this the last remaining one? So those are some of the considerations that the committee can consider when going to council, because those are questions council will want to know. And that discussion could be held at council, but the committee would need to determine, and that's really the question that's being asked is the committee considering designation? And if so, then that should proceed to council as soon as possible. So that's something that staff would take forward, and then council would make that decision, and it could alter the course of the EA. So if council if council decides they want to designate, I'm sure there would be questions about the structural components, integrity of the bridge. And that's really the one issue that is a consideration where is the heritage value of the bridge compromised by its structural integrity? And so that's sort of one of the ways that I guess the bridge could be maybe not able to be rehabilitated. So that's something that could be further discussed and might be a question that would be had at council or could happen before council, but it's just things for the committee to consider. But again, the number one consideration is the heritage value, and could it be rehabilitated? If it can be rehabilitated, does the committee feel that it needs to be protected through designation? So that's really a question that is posed to the committee tonight. And if the committee does value it in that way, then that would be the recommendation. And if not, then it could be that the HIA is considered acceptable and that the committee does not want to take further action to pursue designation at this time. So I hope that helps clarify the decision.
Thank you, Mariana, for clarifying that. I have some questions, Adam, that I would like to direct to you. Now, I recognize that you are fairly new to this, to Center Wellington, but I do have some questions as to process. When a structural assessment was done on this bridge, and obviously it was such that the sides of the bridge needed to were in such disrepair that they needed to be removed. And my question, I guess, is, was the Heritage Committee consulted in the removal of the sides of the bridge? And if not, should the committee have been have had some say, or at least have had some notification in terms of a bridge being structurally altered to the point where it is now difficult even to see what that bridge might have looked like in its original state. None of the reports that we received showed any pictures of the bridge with the guardrails in place, the original guardrails in place. And the amendments to the bridge in terms of replacing the guardrails were done in such a way that the structure of the bridge might have been further compromised by the guardrails that were put in as a substitute. So my question is there a way to work this through, and is there something that can be learned from this process so that the Heritage Committee might be consulted earlier in the process? Because at this late stage where there are no guardrails visible anymore, it's really difficult. I mean, I thank goodness we, were able to view the Salem Bridge, which gave us some semblance of an understanding as to what those guardrails may have looked like. But to be now in a position of trying to make a decision as to the heritage integrity of Bridge 16WG, it makes it very difficult to get a fulsome perspective of what that bridge might have looked like in its original state, and thereby be able to make an informed decision about rehabilitation. So I wonder if you could maybe broach some of that, just to see if there's some way that we can figure out a way that in the future, when it comes to looking at these bridges, that maybe Heritage Center Wellington is able to be involved in the process earlier, so that we're not being asked. And I don't know when those guardrails were removed. I know that the 2013 HIA does not show those guardrails in place, so it must have been, those must have been taken out some time before. So a considerable amount of time has passed where this now comes to the attention of this committee, where maybe had it come to the attention of the committee earlier and some interim decisions made as to the integrity of the bridge, that we may have been able to come to decisions earlier.
Yeah, so thanks for the questions and the comments and through the chair. So with respect to the guardrail, yes, you're correct. I am new to the township, and that certainly predates my time here. And I suspect that the guardrail was removed and replaced quite a long time ago, from what I've read. So I'm not sure exactly when that occurred. What I would say about the guardrail is this: guardrails are a safety feature. And they're to prevent, obviously, vehicles, people from falling over, going over the edge of the bridge. So, just thinking this through, when those types of decisions are made, I know there's, there is it is a bit of a safety driver. So I would say that, when it was discovered that the original guardrails no longer have their structural integrity, I think it's a relatively, it has to be a quick, there has to be action taken quickly to ensure that, the guardrails are installed in a way that's safe or reinforced in a way that's safe. So that said, I can certainly appreciate your perspective on, that them being part of the bridge and part of the cultural heritage of the bridge. And I think it's a bit of a balance, between kind of ensuring that, we're maintaining our roads and bridges in a way that's safe and protective of people and traffic, but also, providing due consultation and making decisions in a way that does consider heritage. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but just maybe trying to provide a bit of context just from, from a bit of my background in terms of an operator's perspective on maybe why some of those decisions get made the way they do and how these things occur.
Aaron, did you have a question? Thank you.
Yeah, just further to that, Nico, in reviewing the 2013 Golder report, it appears that the railings were replaced in 1958, that the guards, so it looks like they're replaced quite a long time ago. In section 3.3, they make reference to the replacement of the barrier, just for reference.
Thank you. I suppose what I'm trying to get at is there a way that heritage, once engineers come to the decision that a structural assessment needs to take place, is there a heads up that can be given to the heritage committee just to say, look, this is what's happening. Do you want to provide any input? So if that could be taken back to the people in your department, at least from my perspective, that would be appreciated.
And it sounds like it'll get into the minutes now too. So, and I think Kirk has a question too, sorry.
Yes, Kirk.
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks, Nico. I'm not sure if Adam or Mariana is the best person to answer this question. And it's kind of an extension of where you were just going. But is it possible, while going through the bridge assessment that happens on a regular basis in the township, that heritage could be involved much earlier in that process so that we can, or heritage can, kind of put some priorities on what should be rehabilitated early on instead of waiting until it's to this condition where it has to be replaced? Because that's I just found in council, and now I'm just brand new on heritage, but these bridges never come to us until it's too late. The decision has already been made that the bridge is closed down or going to be closed down in the very near future. Can we approach it on a more, look at it ahead of time during bridge assessments and say, we should be doing some bridge assessment now, because otherwise 10 years from now, this bridge is going to be dead. That type of thought process. And I think we'd be able to save a lot more heritage bridges that way, but just your thoughts.
Thank you, Kirk. Mariana, did you want to reflect on any of that?
Yes, I think I can provide a little bit of information there. Thanks. So given these bridges, the last 3 or 4 that have come to the committee over the last couple of years, we have had some discussions about about process and recognizing that the EA process is typically at the end, right? When the bridge has reached its the end of its lifespan, needs to be replaced. I've had some discussions with Colin resulting from some of those earlier meetings. And we've been discussing, and now Adam is new to the team as well. So I think we are trying to develop some type of more comprehensive, proactive process, and it hasn't been finalized or put into place yet, but we are trying to get at looking at the capital forecasts, the capital budgets, and the structural assessments that are routinely done for the bridges. So we thought that that might be a good trigger to have us look at some of those. So as those come up, because I understand, Adam, that those assessments are done periodically on all the bridges. And there are some that are identified in that study that was done on bridges, arch beam truss, I think it's called, and was done out of the University of Waterloo, the Heritage Resources Center. So that did identify many of them. And I know that our staff look to those when they're starting any type of EA process on those, just to see if they have been identified. So, and then the heritage consultants do refer to that as well. So that's a starting point to identify which are at least heritage bridges. And so from that, those two sort of identification tools, we could have some conversations about these are the bridges coming up in the next, in the capital forecast, the next 1 to 3 to 5 years. Capital goes up to 10 years. But we would have a sense, and maybe Adam can comment a little further, but we would have a sense of which ones would be coming sooner rather than later based on their structural assessments, and then could have some earlier discussions about, let's say, how many of each type there are, which are maybe the best ones that could be preserved and rehabilitated that don't have, obviously there are other matters for consideration here. So there are safety issues. Some bridges are impacted by flooding. There's farm equipment, there's emergency services. So there might be some that are better candidates than others. And we do appreciate that those conversations could be held a little bit earlier, and that would be beneficial. So I'm not sure if Adam has anything further to comment, but I can say that we haven't yet finalized any type of process, but we're, I think, working on that to see if there is something that can be developed so that the committee is involved at a specific point and can be part of those discussions.
Thank you. Yes, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, committee. I am just wondering if, for the purposes of tonight, have we heard enough? This is what my brain is thinking, that could we support the replacement of Bridge 16WG in a sensitive style manner to what is there, as mentioned previously, with some kind of signage that honors the past, as Marianne had mentioned, I think. And then that, to my knowledge, goes to what we can say to that bridge. My follow-up would be for the Salem Washington Street Bridge, that we look to get it rehabilitated and designated, whichever thing comes first, the designation and the rehabilitation. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Are there any further comments, Don?
I think that does get us back on track. So, and because we not that it wasn't a good discussion, and I think that Kirk and Nico, you're speaking for the whole committee. We've talked about this with bridges getting into early for a long time, and it sounds like what Marianne has already mentioned too, and Adam, you certainly can feel where we stand. But getting in an early stage would certainly be very helpful. But this comes up when we discuss bridges, so we kind of understand that this issue will continue to come up. Okay? So I really appreciate both of those comments of Nico and Kirk. Both of them. I think you're really speaking for all of us. We would like to be in the process a lot earlier, but again, we have something in front of us, right, that we have to decide on, is this bridge. So I think that brings us right back to I don't know if we can. I mean, another option is to I'm just going to throw it out there as another option could be to say we want this bridge designated, and if not, could we have some say in its sympathetic elements? Is that possible to have a two-sided potential there of saying, you know, first off, we think it should be designated, and if council does not agree, then we would like to have another opportunity to participate in its commemoration. Is that something that's possible to do?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
If that's okay. Yes, that's what the committee did with the other two bridges, 4WG and 24WG last year. Council chose not to pursue the designation, and the committee was involved in the sympathetic design of the bridge and the commemoration strategy. So it's an option if this committee feels that it warrants designation, but then that would have to go to council. So this committee would have to agree and then approve a recommendation, and that would have to go to council. So the staff would have to take that to council for consideration.
And just a second, like to add to it, the reason I'm saying that is because if we don't designate, then we kind of wash our hands of it. I don't know if that's the right words of it. But this allows us to at least trigger to council that this is a significant bridge. We know that it can't be rehabilitated is basically one option too. But we do want at least to be participating in that process of, you know, the second stage of it, which would be commemoration of it. Not sure how council will decide, but I can kind of feel that, you know, from the engineering report where they might go, but that's obviously up for council to decide on that. And it's up for our committee to decide. But I think that it might be an option to say we'd like it designated with that asterisk. If not, I don't know what the rest of the committee thinks. I do believe though, Christine, I really like what you suggested. It got us back on track, but I think that 12, I lost a number on it. What is it, 12N, or is that the number of it? I don't even think we have a choice of deciding on that at this point. We can certainly request, but you see, we're not at that stage yet, right? What does the committee think then? How can we proceed? Nico, you want to maybe?
And that's exactly what I was going to do,
Right, okay.
Don, to canvass the committee in terms of their thoughts at this particular point in time, as to whether anyone feels that this is a bridge that is worthy of saving and rehabilitating, or whether this is a bridge that we can see going along with the perspective from an engineering point of view that it's not reasonable to save this bridge and to look at replacement. Mariana.
So I just want to just make note of the fact that the committee is only considering heritage value in the broader context, right? So the engineering side would be argued, information could be provided to council from the engineers. I want to point out to the committee that the initial HIA was done. So what this committee is tasked with is looking at heritage value, and is it, so yes, 9 of 06, Ontario Regulation 9 of 06 prescribes the criteria. If it meets even one criterion, it's considered worthy of designation. So it could be designated. That's what the 9 of 06 says. It gives you sort of a strategy for evaluating, right? What this committee is tasked with and council is tasked with is to understand, is it valuable to this community? So you speak for the community in terms of heritage value. And so for this community, is this bridge considered significant? And if so, for what reason? So that's something that the committee should understand. And then if we look at the HIA, that it did an evaluation of the bridge itself. The original HIA, I just want to point out on page 16 of the Golder HIA, there was an evaluation based on Ontario Heritage Bridge guidelines. And if you look at that one, it scored 16 out of 100 possible score. So it scored 12 on functional design and 4 on visual appeal. So and that was just on design value. It didn't have any points assigned for historic or associative value or any for contextual value. So it was only solely based on functional design. So again, what the committee would consider is Is it a rare, unique example? Are there other examples, or is this the only one remaining? And what does the committee consider significant enough to try to protect it, or to say it has value and should be protected? So that's something that should be considered here. And so the question is, because every HIA potentially that comes forward would say it has value. And so would the committee go forward to council with each one that says it has some value, saying it should be designated? Or are you looking at each one within its own context to say, is it significant enough in this community, to this community, to try to stop it to try to rehabilitate it and stop it? Because again, council could consider financial implications, because when you rehabilitate it, often costs more and has less utility than a new bridge for the farming and all of those reasons that would be set out in the engineering reports. But the council would consider those other aspects, and this committee should consider only heritage, but then there is a broader context within which it should be considered.
So I suppose the question then is there a motion that with respect to this bridge that would entail preserving the bridge as a significant heritage resource? Is anyone leaning in that direction, that this is a bridge that is worthy of heritage consideration and replacement? That it be kept in situ and rehabilitated? Or are we leaning toward the committee having no opposition to, from a heritage perspective, to the fact that this bridge would be replaced? I don't see anyone that is particularly invested in looking at the bridge being retained. So Devlin, if we're looking at a potential motion with regard to this bridge, is there something that we can work out?
I know that, Adam, I believe you intend to bring your preferred option to the next meeting, correct? So Mary, I know it would be appropriate even to just wait until then, and the committee can kind of decide, in the meantime, which way they're leaning, because it seems that there's not really a consensus on anything from anybody right now. Right.
Would that be correct assumption then, Adam, that you will bring further deliberations to this meeting in October?
Yeah, so we intended to present in October the preliminary preferred alternative. And we wanted to wait until October because we wanted to have the benefit of getting through the public open house and being able to bring some of that feedback with us for context when we present on the preliminary preferred alternative. So that is correct.
All right, thank you. I presume then that brings this discussion to a close unless someone has anything else to add. Yes, Mariana.
Yeah, so just one more thing to add then is that, yeah, the committee can decide to just receive this for information tonight, and it's still never too late. The committee can always decide even at the next meeting that the bridge is worthy of designation and wants to pursue it, and then staff would take that notice of intent to designate to council at the subsequent meeting. So it's not too late, like it could still happen at the next meeting, but it's being put before the committee, so the committee has the information at its hands at the earliest. And if there was a desire to take designation request to council, then that could happen sooner rather than later. But if the committee is not of that mind at this moment, at this time, then it can again go to the next meeting as well. Like it still would be possible at the next meeting.
All right, thank you, Devlin and Mariana, for clarifying. And as I say, this will bring this particular issue to a close. At this point, we'll look forward to hearing from you again, Adam, in October.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, this brings us to item 6.1, citizens' request to designate 19 and 19A East Mill Street From what I understand, there were to be 2 presenters pertaining to this particular issue this evening, one being Dan Currie, who I understand owns a property that is adjacent to 19 and 19A East Mill Street. Dan is not able to, Mr. Currie is not able to be in attendance this evening. But he has submitted something in writing to you, Devlin. Are we able to pull that up on the screen by any chance?
Can I just correct you there, Nico?
Yeah, I think Dan's here.
Sorry, Dan is the
I'm sorry.
agent. Dan's
Absolutely.
the agent of the owner.
I'm sorry, Vince.
Yeah.
Vince.
Vince, yeah.
It's Vince Agostino that is not able to join us. Sorry. He is the owner of 14. Well, I think it's
Princess Street.
Yes, yes. So Vince can't join us this evening. Dan will be, we'll hear from later. Vince has provided a written submission to the committee, and if we could pull that up, please. Is that possible, Devlin? All right, can everyone see that? Okay. So let's review from Mr. Agostino's written submission, points A, B, and C. So point A indicates that Mr. Agostino believes that the 1862 listed rubble stone building adjacent to my property meets all 3 9/06 criteria for designation under the Ontario Heritage Act. Point B, I believe that designation is consistent with Heritage Centre Wellington's mandate, comma, with the township official plan generally, and with section C2 in particular. With the findings of the Heritage Centre Wellington Cultural Heritage Landscape Report recently endorsed by council and is in the public interest. Point C, I will forward to Heritage Centre Wellington a document in support of designation prepared by Ian Ranke prior to the October meeting. So that is Mr. Agostino's submission. Given the fact that he's not here to answer any questions, I presume that unless anybody has some questions that they want contained in the minutes at this point, I guess we can proceed to the next delegation. All right. Then let's look at Mr. Dan Currie attending. If we can allow Mr. Currie to participate at this point.
Yes, good evening. I'm here, if you can hear me now.
Yes, Dan, thank you. If you could just indicate your position in this, whom you represent, and we can hear your submission and then ask questions afterward, if that's okay with you.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chair. That's certainly fine with me. My name is Dan Currie. I'm with MHBC Planning, and I'm here on behalf of the owners of 19 Mill Street, and really in response to the previous fellow's submission. And what I wanted to do is, I guess really the point I want to make is that we ask you not to act on the request to designate the property at this time. And the reasoning behind that is as follows. The owners are currently in the midst of considering development options for the property. They've retained us to complete a cultural heritage evaluation of the property and a heritage impact assessment. They are fully aware, fully understand that the property has potential cultural heritage value, both in terms of what's on the site, but also just given its location and where it is in the heart of Elora. And there's a wider team beyond us that's part of that project team that's advising them. So we're providing the heritage planning services. My partner, Pierre Chauvin at MHBC is assisting with the planning, and James Fry at Architect, and Tacoma Engineers, Will Taron in particular, are all involved in the project. So we haven't completed our evaluation, our heritage impact assessment. So that's really the reason we're asking you to defer any action at this point, is to give us a chance to complete our work. We'd be bringing that forward probably within the next couple of months, in which case you'd have opportunity to understand what the findings are, what the proposed development is. And of course, the cultural heritage evaluation that we're undertaking would be a necessary first step and ingredient in any proposed designation. So to a certain extent, there would be a certain amount of duplication. But regardless of that, the whole process is underway. And so we'd encourage the committee to defer any action until we're able to complete that process. And so with that, that's really the point of my remarks. And back to you, Mr. Chair, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can at this time.
Thank you, Dan. We'll turn it over to the committee. Are there any questions based on that submission? I do have a question, Dan. I just want to, if you're asking us not to act on any consideration of designation at this point, given that you'll be invoking a share and an HIA, is there any imminent threat to what is on the property currently, or there are no cited considerations of engaging in any kind of alteration until your reports are prepared? Is that correct? It will just remain as is, the structures that are currently on the property?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chair. The properties are listed on a municipal heritage register. So of course, there's some protection under the Act as such. But more specifically to your point, no, the owners are following through on the process. There's no intention to subvert the municipal processes and rules and regulations that are in place.
Okay. Is there yes, Don?
Yeah, I don't mean to be speaking so much, but thanks, Dan, for coming on and giving us your perspective. This is the white stucco house. Is that the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, there's actually two structures on the site. There's
right.
There's a house, and then in behind there's an older stone structure that's
right.
been altered a bit and used differently over time. But it's both structures are on the same property.
And are they both part of your assessment that you're going to be doing, both structures?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I think we have a lot of information still to come. I would agree in many ways with what Dan is suggesting. And I also, from the letter, it sounds like we don't have all the information yet. So I'm certainly of the mind that until we get more information, it's something for us to consider at a later date. Mr. Chair, I'm not putting a motion forward, but I'm just putting out a suggestion. So we can make it into a motion if we need to, but I think we need more information, and it sounds like information is coming in the coming months.
Is there anyone that has any further commentary? Kirk?
Thanks, Nico. Just once again, I'm new on the Heritage Committee, so I may be speaking out of line, but I just recall from 37 McNabb back 2 or 3 years ago that the Heritage Committee actually did a walkthrough of the building pre-HIA and that type of thing. And I'm just wondering if that would be in order here, just to, so everybody can get an idea of what's there before it gets presented back to us by the consultants.
Thank you for that. Would you be able to comment on that? Would a site visit at this particular point in time be something that could be considered? We do have a designation subcommittee, and it might be, it's very difficult from the submissions that we have currently to get a fulsome perspective of exactly what is on the property, what it looks like. So if the designation subcommittee members could at least at some point have some access to the property just to see what's actually there and get a visual perspective, that would be wonderful.
I can certainly take that back to my clients, Mr. Chair. I can't answer that at this point.
Understandable.
I can't foresee that there might be opposition, other than there is some, not work going on, but our investigations, but I'll certainly take that back.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any other commentary that anyone wishes to make at this point? So it sounds like further submissions to this committee will be made, and that we can bring some resolution to this at this point. We have the commentary from Mr. Agostino, and we have the verbal submission from Mr. Currie, and I think that's sufficient for this evening, unless someone else has anything that they want to add. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Currie. We'll look forward to your further submissions and seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Good night.
Good night. All right, this brings us to 7.1, the listed property at 85 Moyer Street in Elora. And my understanding is that there is an addition on the back of that property that the owners are seeking to have removed and replaced with a modern structure. So do we have someone to speak to that issue this evening?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair, it's Jason Martin. I am the owner of the property.
All right, Mr. Martin, would you be able to run us through what you are proposing for the property then? And then if you don't mind, we'd voice some questions at the end if it's appropriate.
Sure. Thanks for seeing me today. And my name is Jason Martin. I live at 85 Moir. I've lived there for 11 years now. I am an architect that has a practice in Kitchener, and we do large and small projects. But interestingly, a lot of them are adaptive reuse projects, which would include the South Works down in Cambridge, and the old post office Designate building in downtown Waterloo, and the Bright Up building in Kitchener. So we do a lot of work with committees such as yourself. But I have finally, after 11 years, turned my attention to my own house. You know, like a shoe cobbler, sometimes his house gets left behind when they're busy. So I'm drawn attention to my house, and I have a growing family that I need to expand and provide an additional bedroom and some more living space. So if I could share the screen, would that be possible?
A question could be posed to Devlin.
You should be able to now, Jason.
Thank you. So this is the facade of my house from 85 Moyer Street from the street. And what you see here is the original house. There was a small addition, I think at some point put on at the front here. I don't know the era of that. And an addition, a granny flat, which is currently used as a granny flat for my mother-in-law. And this is a view from the back, and you can see the granny flat here. And what is the tail of the house, and then an addition off of the tail. And you can see the original house here. And the goal really for us is to provide some additional area for my family, and to build a second story addition, a bedroom at the back, which I think is about 500 square feet. And obviously it needs to go over the existing structure at the back there. And we're seeking permission to demolish this piece. If this is the survey of the building and some details of the existing structures, this is showing what is the red brick portion. I don't know the exact time of the structures, but I think this may have been put on after, just how it was constructed, but I am not certain. It certainly is in all the same character of the existing building and brickwork, but the as a tail of the house, or would have been a summer kitchen, it's not actually, the brickwork is independent, and it's none of the brickwork is toothed in, so not sure if it was done at the same time. So I'm suggesting that was the time that was done, and it's in fair condition. This piece here is a wood frame structure, and it was done in the 1970s and is in fair condition as well. The proposed addition is we're proposing to actually build it on the same footprint currently, which is shown right here. And then this line here would be the addition above. And these are proposed elevations of the building. I would like to take some of the brick that's on the building and reuse it in other areas across the site. In particular on the front of the building to enhance the front entry. And I don't have a detail of the back. I can maybe show if you are interested, but taking some of that brick and using it in some of the landscape features at the back. Yeah, so that's sort of my request, is to allow me to put an addition on, and but I would need to remove the tail of the house. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Those are very informative photos and drawings. If we could turn it back to the committee at this point, are there any questions that anyone has of Jason that might enhance their decision making? Yes, Sherry.
Yeah, it looks like from the front of the building, there's not really anything that's changing. So it looks like it's mostly at the back of the house. So it's not really, I guess, changing the actual look of the heritage building. Is that correct? It's not, there's not, the roof line is below where the roof line is now. So it looks like it's all at the back of the house, and it's just the structure like a pergola that's coming down, and it's the 2-story does not look above the roof line. if that is correct.
Yeah, that's correct. That it from the street, like the intention was, the addition is obviously in a modern idiom, and I think that benefits the existing house because I'm not extending the pitch of the house or anything. You're actually retaining what I would call sort of the cube of the house and the roof line. So yes, that's the goal, and ultimately, at the end of the day, it would be fairly hard to see the addition from the street. From certain angles, you could see it, but that's the goal, is to be sensitive to what you'd see from the street.
Are there any other questions that anyone has? Yes, Don.
I always have a question. So, Jason, I really like the modern feel to the addition. Is that your design? Is that?
It is, yeah. Thank you.
And I think that there's something to be said for modern and heritage unions, bringing those two together. And I really like that you thought about that. And I also heard you speaking about recycling some of the material and reusing it in other places, which our committee really appreciates when we hear that. So not just a comment about your design, but I did have a question about what will this look like? I've only really seen a black and white architectural drawing. What's the material that you're going to be using for this addition? I see the modern windows and that, but what would this look like in terms of, is it board and batten? What is it? I'm not quite sure. So just to give us maybe an idea of where you're coming from with what it looks like.
Yeah, sure. So I'd like to use wood siding and not a like actual wood. You know, everyone today seems to always want to put on vinyl siding because they don't want to paint it, and I'm of a different mind. I think wood is a better product, and we've been putting up wood for hundreds of years, and you just need to maintain it and paint it and finish it. So it would be horizontal wood siding.
Thank you, Jason, for expanding on that. And I do appreciate the design that you've put into the modern and heritage. I think that that's a great way of unifying where we are at and also maintaining the heritage. You have a very pretty home too from the street level too. So, and you've maintained it quite well. So I personally don't have any issues with the demolition, but I certainly would put that back to the committee and let you guys decide on which way we want to go.
Thank you, Don. With that in mind, if there are no further questions, if I could canvass the committee as to their preference. If anyone wishes to declare any opposition. Yeah, okay, seeing none. I wonder if you could just, Devlin, assist in putting together a motion that would reflect the fact that the committee is not opposed at this point.
Sure. So I would just say that Heritage Center Wellington does not oppose the partial demolition of listed property 85 Moir Street, Elora.
Is there anyone that would like to move on that motion? Sherry, and a seconder on that. All right, Christine, thank you very much. All right, is there any further discussion on the motion? All right, just to repeat then, that Heritage Center Wellington does not oppose the partial demolition of listed property noted as 85 Moir Street in Elora. Again, there's no opposition, then we will declare that motion to be moved. And I'd like to thank you, Jason, for your appearance, and wish you well with the addition. It looks wonderful, and I want to thank you for you know, your consideration of maintaining the heritage attributes of the original building. That's wonderful.
Great. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thank you for
Have a great night.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the delegation information items and the presentation with regard to Bridge 16WG. There is a 8.1 information item regarding 19 and 19A East Mill Street. But unless someone has a different take on that, it sounds as if we came to some resolution in our earlier discussion with the delegation. Does anyone have any further commentary with regard to the request to designate offered by Mr. Agostino at this point? Or are we satisfied that further deliberations with regard to the property of 19 and 19A East Mill Street will come forward to this committee, at which time decisions around designation or non-designation can be made? Okay. Then we will consider item 8.1 resolved, and we can move to subcommittee updates. Public Relations Education Subcommittee. Are there any reports from that committee? Just for my information, who's on that? Christine, I believe you're on that committee. Is that correct?
Yes, with invited and acquiesced, and I believe it's with Nanette. Am I correct?
Yeah, I guess. I think, if I remember correctly, I think I did volunteer for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but no, that's good. I am officially on the committee now.
All right. The minutes will reflect that. Mariana, did you have some commentary?
I just wanted to note that, I mean, over the summer, we haven't had a lot of subcommittee work, but we are looking to restart that work now in the fall. And with Christina and Annette now being on that committee, it would be helpful and a good time to begin the work on the Heritage Awards that are coming up in February. So we did discuss that at the end of the summer. Early fall, we would start that up again in terms of a public awareness campaign, and whether we want to put in another newspaper ad or something like that to try to get nominations in. And also the committee, if you could look to considering properties for nominations for Heritage Awards for February and submit those to the subcommittee. I will work with the subcommittee as well, and we will go through those so that we could have some awards presented in February, whether we're in person or online, but either way we could do that still. And we did a good spread, I think it was last year, where we put photos and information in the newspaper in 2020 in February, I believe it was, and presented those awards. So that I think we are looking to do something similar, but we were looking at a broader range of categories this time and involving the public. So just that's a brief update, and I'm hoping to get some of that work underway this coming month. And I will touch base with Christina and Nanette over the coming weeks about starting that work up again. So just again, to put that out to the committee to please send in your nominations, and we will send out some information again on those award categories so that you have that at hand, and then could provide some nominations for some of those categories if possible. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mariana. We will move on to item 9.2, the Designated Property Subcommittee. Erin, do you have any comments? We haven't met either over the summer being
No,
committee.
No updates, but I expect we'll get back online now that it's the fall. And we can review too that the request to designate 19 and 19A Mill Street just as a subcommittee as well. So we'll put that on our list.
Absolutely.
So that it's on the radar.
Absolutely. And we'll hope to hear some direction in that regard from the owner, who is Sandy McEachran, And yeah, if we can proceed with that as quickly as possible, that would be good. All right, thank you. The Municipal Register Subcommittee, item 9.3, any commentary from that subcommittee? Again, recognizing the fact that we've had a long summer and with a well-deserved rest from the subcommittee members. So if there is no comment on that, then we have reached the end of the meeting for today. And unless anyone has anything that they wish to add, we can adjourn the meeting. All right, very good. Thank you very much, folks.
Excellent job, Mr. Chair.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Yeah.
Sorry about
Thanks,
the
Nico.
confusion on item 6.1. Thank you. Have a good night.